And welcome back now for our final presentation of the day with Phil M0DNY, who's back to tell us about solving some of the challenges of adjacent band RFI on HAMTV reception in the UK and examples of filtering to mitigate it. As I mentioned, Jen G4JIZ will also be on hand at the end to link these tips to her own experiments. So back to you, Phil.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to just cover again the standard setup, which actually you've seen from Jen as well. This is the LNA and filter afterwards that Jen ended up coming up with in her ground station. And we're mainly looking at the RFI, which again is the spectrum. So this dual issue of the 4G from 2350 to 2390 on the bottom, and then the Wi-Fi from 2.4 gigahertz up. It actually extends quite a bit off the end of the screen. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to concentrate on this 100 megahertz span. So this is set to 100 megahertz span. And the main issue that I've found is that you end up needing quite a high dynamic range. And what that means is that later amplification stages can end up compressing and otherwise introducing non-linearity, at which point you'll both get a reduction in gain in the particular bandwidth that HAMTV is in, and you can also start to see spectral leakage as well. So it'll look like there's signals coming up. If you're looking at the waterfall, it'll look like there's signals coming across where HAMTV is meant to be. That's not actually happening, but that's your system overloading and not reacting as it should. I'll put this system noise figure slide in again for anybody who didn't join us earlier. So in the system noise figure and optimizing the system noise figure, you end up needing quite a bit of gain to get over the losses that are potentially in your chain, particularly with a passive down converter like this HAMTV system here, which has 12 dB conversion loss with no active gain, and so you end up needing a lot of gain in front of that to minimize your system noise figure, and that is where you can end up running into problems with that large amount of gain, not able to cope with the high power that you get through RFI. So I'm going to run through a couple of filters that I've been working with. So this is a 3-pole filter that I picked up, I think, at CAT25 that was being sold here. It's a 13 centimeter 2320 megahertz unit, and I've retuned that using the 3 tuning screws to center it on 2395. And there's the plot there. That's 100 megahertz wide. It's 5 dB per division. And I've put the spectrum squashed below for reference. And you can see that's quite nicely centered. The insertion loss was only 0.4 dB, which is rather nice. But it's also it doesn't reject very much. It's not doing very much, and it's not really doing enough in this case. So at this point, I was looking around for alternatives, and one of the issues that we've had is that we've had quite a few people asking us who had HAMTV stations running in 2016, 2017. Okay, how do I build a successful HAMTV station? What do I need to buy? And when we've gone, you need a good filter, they ask, where can we buy this from? And the answer is, search around at rallies for a few years and see if you can find one, which doesn't tend to be very popular. So Tim MW0RUD had been looking around for this same issue, and he'd found these Wi-Fi filters that are being sold on eBay and other low-cost outlets. And these are designed to protect Wi-Fi from other interference, but they have a lot of tuning screws on them. And he was looking into whether they could be retuned. He actually had one that he took along to CAT25 Part 1 and spent a while there on the SpecAn trying to retune it, and found that it was quite a time-consuming activity. But I figured as I have access to a SpecAn at home, I'd could spend a couple of evenings having a go at that. And so I got one to try myself. So here on the left is as it looked like disassembled when it arrived. So it's got the tuning screws, original tuning screws. Unfortunately, these have been hacksawed off. And so one of the first steps that Tim had to do, and I had to copy him on this, was to replace those tuning screws. So I found some brass tuning screws rather than steel, and inserted those instead. And then with calipers, I very carefully measured the exact exposed lengths of all the threads and attempted that to match as a starting point for tuning. You can see in this filter, I don't actually have a plot of how it looked like before, but it was very sharp around the Wi-Fi band. It was actually quite decent out of the box before being used on Wi-Fi, quite impressive. And that's really down to the really quite well-designed, I wouldn't say precise, but well-calculated machining inside. So this is with the brass screws. This is post-tuning, and on the right is what I managed to do with it. So it's ended up quite sharp. This is again 5 dB per division vertical, 100 meg span. However, the machining that's done is obviously done to center it on the 2.4 gig Wi-Fi band, which is 2.4 up to quite a bit up, and bringing it down anywhere below 2.4 really added loss into it, presumably because the cavities aren't big enough. And so although I've got this quite sharp point nicely centered on 2395, I had nearly 8.5 dB of insertion loss. So it's not an ideal filter, but I decided was a good back pocket option to have, but you definitely wouldn't want to put this in front of your LNA. So in parallel to this, Graham Sherville, G3VZB, had been talking to John, G4ZTR, at Aerial Parts of Colchester, who I believe might be the manufacturer of the 3-pole that I have, as to whether he could provide any suitable filter for HAMTV. John regularly produces filters for the 13 centimeters band, and he was able to put together a small batch of filters designed for 2395 with the right cavity sizes for 2395, and we were able to buy those off him. And this is the measured result of the one that I received. So exactly the same scales as before. You can see it's tuned to have quite a wide passband, but it does roll off quite nicely, and at least reduces a lot of the high-end Wi-Fi and reduces at least half of the 4G that's there. One of the nice things about this is that the insertion loss, I think I've measured it at 0.8 dB there. I think actually it's probably closer to about 0.5, 0.6. So it is definitely an option to put in front of the LNA if you have to. We have had some stations that have had high gain LNAs, particularly some of the Kuna LNAs, are 60 dB of gain or such, which sounds great, but they overload very easily, and even putting a filter after it doesn't help with that. So this is a possible filter that you could put in front of the LNA. And as you saw, Jen, with her highly optimized system, was able to get for 15 dB signal to noise. If this cuts it down to 14.5 peak, you've still got plenty of margin with that. So looking at the filter in place, the top screenshot is the SpecAn at my QTH. I am very lucky that I have no 4G locally. It's the only place I've found so far that doesn't have that 4G band, but I still do have the Wi-Fi to deal with. And the channel power within this, with no filter, was coming through my system at minus 30 dBm. And when I put that filter in, you can see that the height of the passband at 2395 in the center hasn't really changed. But with the filter in place, that was down at minus 48 dBm. So I had 18 dB less power coming through the chain, but still the same noise floor from the at the frequency of interest. And that was only with the Wi-Fi. I suspect that if the 4G was here, that would be improved by 3 or 4 dB. There'd be an extra 3 or 4 dB improvement within that as well. So I'm going to quickly run through what I had at the Warwick venue last weekend. So this is unfiltered. This is looking directly at the back of the LNA. From Specan on the left. This is the wider setup on the right. You can see the Specan perched on a box. And this was particularly looking in the direction of the west, where we're going to start to get the ISS rising over, and where we had less ground stations out in the west. We have more to the east. So this is where I wanted to try and optimize it, and there was a 4G tower roughly in that direction. So you can see quite a lot of noise coming in on the 4G, and this was causing issues. Particularly the Pluto was seeing was seeing bouncing interference in the HAMTV band. A lot of this will probably be the Wi-Fi, as Jen mentioned, it's quite bursty. That adding to the power of the 4G adds together to make some high power bursts. So I put in the one filter, so this is John's filter, the 5-pole John's filter, and you can see that that's rounded it off quite well. In practice, for the low elevation that I was trying to achieve at this location, this wasn't quite enough. Particularly looking at Warwick, out towards the east, we had a line of sight out to Warwick, and the noise floor just came right up, looking in that direction. So I really wanted to try and lock this down. And so I also added that Wi-Fi filter in this case. And you can see that that's brought the noise floor down by about 8 dB, because I had that 8 dB insertion loss, but it's also really cut everything off quite nicely. On the right there, you can see the photo of the setup. So the blue cable is coming out through the dish, the boss of the dish from the LNA that's at the prime focus. It's then going into a 3 dB attenuator. This is to provide a good return loss, as Jen talked about, for stability for the LNA. I was a little worried this much power going into the blocking of the filter wasn't going to provide good impedance match to the LNA. So I've got 3 dB pad in there, then the first filter, then the second filter, and then that loops around into more amplification to bring it up to the right level for the mini tuner input. And this is the end of these slides. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If Jen has some input.
Indeed. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Phil. Very interesting to see that adaptation of the local, the little cheap Chinese-made filter there, converting it from Wi-Fi for this use. So really, really good stuff. And Jenna's joining you as well now, so maybe two of you can chat. I've just got one question, if I may, probably more for you, Phil, because you go to many of these ARIS contacts. Are the youngsters themselves interested in the technology? I could imagine that you sort of rope it off, certainly before the contact, but are there a lot of them interested in the actual technology used?
So we do get interest in the technology used. We do get them wanting to see the radios before the contact, and have a look at what's going on. I do feel that the logistics of it sometimes means that we're often setting up at the weekend, for example, for a Monday morning contact or such, and that perhaps they don't get as much time as they should to talk to us about the technology, to look at the technology and find out more. So we do get it a little, but I'm trying to cater for doing more in the future.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? But I can see how each contact is pretty unique, it sounds like. You know, you still have to do the homework for each one, even though you've done them for so long. Anyway, this is the last presentation, the formal presentation of the afternoon. So it's your last chance at home now to ask questions, either of Phil or Jen, who's still there. And plenty of opportunity to do that before we wrap up CAT25 Part 2. So I'll just have a look here. I haven't got any questions as such. I've got a comment from G7LWT who says the LCOM Wi-Fi filters retune nicely for amateur use. They're not cheap, but they do come up on eBay from time to time. Any of you experienced with the LCOM filters?
Not personally.
No? Okay, well that's still a good recommendation. Thank you from G7 LWT. No other questions as such at the moment. Phil, you're the only person I've ever met in the world who's ever said that you haven't got 4G in your area and it's a great thing, because believe me in Norfolk it's not like that, and I think possibly other areas as well, but obviously that's helped you in that area.
Yeah, I mean I do have 4G coverage, it's just not this particular band. that's been rolled out yet.
I see. Okay.
I think yet is the key word there. As I said in the previous talk, they bought the spectrum in 2018. So in terms of the spectrum being available, it is quite recent. Perhaps they just haven't covered this area yet for that particular band.
But it's best to be prepared for it, especially if you're going to invest in all this equipment now.
Yes.
Jen, I guess you've been in touch with Phil and you've watched and looked at some of the articles and things he's written about this.
Absolutely. And also, I just want to say that with the advent of the HAMTV setup, I mean, it'd be nice if they could perhaps put a test card generator on there all the time instead of black video. That would be really useful. But it's an ideal topic to use during British Science Week, which is coming up in the new year, and to do demonstrations with schools or whatever, or scouting or cadet organisations. So I think that this ISS HAMTV is a really good boost and come just at the right moment.
Yeah, really good, and it makes it relevant. I'm sure most of you watching this will have heard of the term STEM, which is science, technology, engineering and maths, and it's a way of trying to make this technological world relevant to young people at school and college, you know, just to sort of make that real link between things. And it couldn't be anything much more cool, really, surely, than making contact with the space station. I mean, Jen's just made a good point there. Probably instead of sending out a blank raster, maybe they can set up a simple test card or something to say what it is, so that people could tune into it. What do you think, Phil? Is there a chance that you could persuade the powers that be to do that?
Yes, so there's actually been one in the pipeline for a while. I mentioned in the previous talk that we currently use this NTSC input on the camera, and they're holding on to the one remaining NTSC camera on board because the rest are HDMI. So ARIS has launched up to the ISS already a NTSC to HDMI converter, and inside this converter it also has the ability to produce a test card when there's no camera plugged in. So we are hoping that will soon be approved for use, and they will then be able to plug that in, and we should get a test card. I'm not aware of exactly what that test card involves, but at least it won't just be a black screen. And from my point of view in testing video players, I'm looking for the video players playing consistent frame rate, and at that point I just want to see some noise on the picture moving, something moving on the picture to show me there's still frame rate going on. So I understand that the ARIS team are working quite hard to get that through final approvals at the moment. There's lots of approvals it has to go through before it can be plugged into the power supply systems, checking it for RF compliance, all this kind of thing. And my understanding is that's going through the final stages, and we are expecting it to be plugged in the next few months, at which point that would be the standard to see, would be that test card instead of the blank screen.
Yeah, that'd be really good, wouldn't it? Jen, you're going to come back?
If I could just add something.
Absolutely,
there.
Please do.
One of the issues, I say issues, that one has come across is that occasionally the signal is actually turned off from the ISS, and they do this for operational reasons. Unfortunately, you know, if you're trying to receive the signal, you might say, is it my system or is it not transmitting? But what I do actually to check, I usually look at the ARIS website, and there's a whole collection of people trying to receive it. And if they can't receive it, then it's probably off. Especially the Goonhilly site, because I use that as a reference station. And I say, well, if they haven't got it, I assume that it's on most of the time. At the moment, I know it's only a temporary feed. But having said that, you know, there's a whole bunch. If they aren't receiving it, that's what I say to people. If they haven't got it on there, it's probably turned off at the moment for good reasons. And they may be doing something at the ISS, which means they don't want the extra RF floating around. That's all I would say. Cheers.
Yeah, on that, we've got that does happen from time to time. They turn off the RF, as you said, particularly during spacewalks. They don't want all the transmitters switched on while they're clambering over them. But the other thing is that also the HAMTV unit is currently sharing a power supply with another science experiment on the station. And in particular, in September, there was a time where we were scheduled to hand over the power supply to them for just a couple of days. And their experiment ended up overrunning, I think due to some issues on their side, and we actually ended up off for 2 or 3 weeks. The best place to stay apprised of this really is the social media channels, particularly ARIS Intel or ARIS International on Twitter or Blue Sky. They really make efforts to be on the ball with announcing when things are going to turn off, when they're going to turn back on again, and also announcing when some plan has changed. There are a number of other status displays around which are not very well maintained. So the best place really is the social media channels. The merger page has been useful for the past couple of weeks. However, you'll see if you go to it this week, there's virtually no one on, because since the contact last weekend, we've all packed up the stations, and certainly I haven't unpacked mine from the boxes yet. So up to contacts, you'll see a lot of stations on there, but you can't really rely on it, unfortunately.
And may I ask, is the Goonhilly system generally switched on?
It is not, no.
Okay,
I had it on for several weeks in the lead up to the contact. I was quite lucky with the availability of it, and so I left it on and tracking. It is no longer on and tracking as of Sunday.
Okay, so that's, unfortunately, we can't rely on it as being saying that it's on. Okay, thanks, Phil.
Okay, we are getting to the end. If you have a question, this is the time you have to ask it, because otherwise we're nearly finished. I've got just one more question. Although, and I haven't given name checks out to many people now, but I've got to do this one because it's from Steph VK5FQ, who says, great show, broadcast here in Oz on 445.5 megahertz DVB-T. Well done. So there we are. So we are reaching far and wide. So Phil, or maybe either of you can answer this. This is from G4GXL. Is there a logical way to tune the Wi-Fi filter? Do you just adjust every screw in sequence and then repeat several times? Or is there a strategy for picking the sequence to use? I think Phil, probably more for you.
So I went for each in sequence and moving it down. However, this is my first time seriously retuning a filter. So Jen might be able to help more on that.
There is a method which I forget the name of, but another way of looking at it, to get it in the right region, because sometimes you might have to actually tune it across quite a wide frequency, is to basically look at the input return loss and peak the cores from one end, if you like, looking at one end, terminate the other end, peak the cores at the frequency you're interested in for best return loss, turn it around and do it again. You'll have a pretty rough and ready pass band, which you can then fiddle a little bit with the cores to try and get it right. And it does take a little bit of messing about, I must admit. It took me quite a while to tune that filter to 10 megahertz width, because you end up with slope on one side or the other and so on. Anyway, but there is a method, I can't remember the name of it, shame on me, but there is an approach. So have a look on the web as the best approach to tuning multi-pole filters.
I think it's called, Mike has just come on and said it's called Dishal, I think.
Yeah, that's it, Dishal's method. So, Dishal's method.
And all this time later, Phil, as well, I've thought of the thing when you were talking about that spanner and the way it was. I think you were thinking of the word, or trying to think of the word protractor. Is that right?
I was actually thinking of plumb line.
Oh, plumb line. Yes.
But yes,
okay.
it was so that we could see against the protractor.
Yes.
The protractor was written out on the back of a cardboard box that was mounted to the side of the tripod. Yeah.
Lovely.
It worked.
Well, brilliant. Thanks very much to both of you for this afternoon, and special thanks, I think, at time to say as well to the ARIS UK team who do everything they do. You're part of that, Phil, I know, but there's lots of people. We saw 2 or 3 in the pictures there, but there's clearly many more people involved with every one of those contacts. And I think we need to thank you both for what you do for ATV with that, but also what you do for all those young people, and hopefully inspire some of them to become the engineers of the future. So take this as a thanks from everybody, I'm sure, in BATC for all the work you do. But for now, for Jen and Phil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, thanks also to all of our other presenters today, as well as Studio Director Tammy M0TC, who's been working behind the scenes all day, making everything happen as and when it should. Maybe you'd like to show your hand, Tammy, to see you actually do exist. All right. All being well, we might come and do this again if AI hasn't taken over next time. But as mentioned in his address this morning, unfortunately, Gareth can't be with us to close this year's event. So after this short video, Dave G8GKQ will wrap up CAT25 Part 2. Bye-bye.
Well, what a day that was. Some really good presentations. I'd like to thank our presenters, Charles, for his overview of AI. It's good to hear from somebody who's been doing AI for so long and trying to apply it to amateur radio. I think I might wait another year before dipping my toe in. Justin, I was amazed at the level of integration you've achieved with that repeater, with the 3 repeaters there. Having designed the BATC ATV repeater controller, I know how complicated these things are, and you've just taken it to another level, so really impressive. Phil and Jen, well, Phil's presentation on HAMTV was a really marvelous summary of how we've got to where we are. And what struck me is, initially when HAMTV was going to be recommissioned, there was this sort of sense amongst some of us that we've all done it before. But what struck me is we've had to face new challenges with the new 4G band there, and pushing ourselves further to get continuous video coverage. Now, I think we're going to very soon reach the situation where the video coverage is far better than the VUHF voice. And Jen, the view of how to do it simply, that is exactly how I started with the 60 centimeter dish, hand steered, and I would encourage anybody to give it a try. And when the ISS is in high elevation, it is very loud, and the reward for seeing it is very great. So would encourage everybody to give that a try. I'd like to thank Gareth for putting the program together. I think we had a really good varied set of talks. But the biggest thanks of the day must go to Tammy and David for such a professional production. Really good to see such a high quality program, both in terms of video quality, presentation values, and presentation content go out today. So thanks very much to Tammy and David. And with that, I will close the proceedings for today. Hope to see you in person at CAT26 next year, which will be in early August. And again, online CAT26, online probably in mid to late October next year. So thank you very much for watching, and good afternoon.